Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and to another episode of Behind the Shot. If you're new to my channel, hi, my name's Holly and I'm a wildlife photographer, and this is a mini series that every few weeks I discuss one of my favourite wildlife shots that I've taken previously, and I discuss it and we go into detail about what the subject is, how I took it, and then we talk about the composition and break down the entire photograph and process in the hopes that it helps someone, and it also gives me a chance to reflect on the photographs that I've taken and why I love these particular shots so much. So if you missed last time's one, it was a buff tip moth photograph, and I will link it below. Or above, or whatever it is, and you can check out that one. But this week we are discussing a new shot, and this one is a bit of a different subject to the moth. We're going to be discussing this one here that I have as a print, and I'll put it on screen, and it is a common buzzard photograph. And yeah, that is the one we're going to discuss today, and it's a bit different to the moth. Is the buzzard, which is the UK's most common bird of prey, if you're interested. They used to be very rare, and they were one of the rarest species of bird of prey in the UK. However, since the 1970s, they have made a massive comeback and are now the most common, so that's fun. So you've probably, if you're in the UK, you've probably seen one kind of circling around when you're out and about, or so occasionally you see them landed in fields that have just been ploughed, things like that. That's where you see them. But yeah, they're the UK's most common bird of prey, and this is the shot we are going to be discussing in today's episode. So let me talk about where and how I took this photograph. So this one was taken in a country park, and it was actually on an aerial walkway, which is why it kind of looks like I'm at the same level as the buzzard, because I was. And it was really lucky because it was on an aerial walkway where you can look straight through all of these trees and see what's going on around it. And it's most commonly used for a bird. They've got like a bird feeder set up, but there's also other trees, and obviously there's this lovely branch here where this buzzard had decided to perch this day, which was very lucky for me. So that's how I kind of took the photograph. It is a very popular country park, and it gets thousands of visitors, and so none of the birds there are at all afraid of people, which is also really useful. But that is kind of the background as to where this shot was taken. And then in terms of the equipment that I used, it was a telephoto 150 to 600mm lens by Sigma, I think it was, the contemporary one. I'll put a picture up on the screen of what it was. I don't actually have this lens anymore. I traded it back in because I found it really heavy. But this is one of the good photos that I did manage to take with it before I traded it back in. But that's the equipment that I used, and then I don't think I used any particular settings because the buzzard, it wasn't going anywhere quickly. It was there for at least 45 minutes, not really kind of shuffling about the branches, but it wasn't flying away or anything. And it didn't catch anything either whilst I was there, which was slightly disappointing for me. But I imagine it must have just eaten and was taking a rest or checking out its surroundings. I'm not particularly sure. But if we get onto kind of the composition of the photograph, you can see that we have, this is one of my favourite composition bird photographs that I've taken, actually, because firstly the tree trunks like kind of perfectly frame our buzzard here in the centre, which is not really, I don't really follow rules of photographs, like the rule of thirds and putting things in particular sections. I just kind of shoot what I like. And for me, I really like how it's in the very centre, and you can, even though the trees are there and they are a big part of the photograph, it's very clear that the buzzard is the main centrepiece, and you can see him right in the middle. And I really love how all the colours kind of fit together as well. And what's interesting is that I did actually return to this country park, and I've gone back a few times actually, but one particular time that I went back, the same, I imagine it was the same buzzard, was there again, but he was on a different branch, and I'll put those photos up, and I've actually got them on my phone to have a look as like a comparison. But what's interesting is that he was on a different branch, and the surrounding foliage, it must have been a different time of year, and the surrounding foliage was way greener than in this photo that we're looking at today. I'll put the pictures on screen of the greener foliage, and I thought when I was taking these pictures that they were going to be my new favourite and they were going to outdo this one that we're looking at today, because the buzzard in this one had clearly just caught something, and you could kind of see blood on his kind of claws and talons and his beak as well, and I thought that was really, really cool. However, on getting home and editing the pictures, even though he looks really, really cool, the green, he kind of blends in to the greenery, and he just kind of, it's just not as good as the one that we've got here going on. And so that's why I like this one the best, because you can really tell the buzzard is there and he's centre, and the background around him is blurred, but the two tree trunks kind of frame him really nicely in the centre. Now, another thing to mention about this photograph, and something that I just briefly spoke about, is the colours in this one. Even so, the greenery ones I don't like very much, because the green, he kind of blurs into the green. But in my favourite one that we're looking at today, you can really tell, even though the tree trunks kind of mirror the colours of his feathers, or her feathers, I'm not sure how you sex buzzards, their feathers, you can also very clearly see the details in the feathering. And I also really love how the beak and the claws, his talons, or I don't know, is talons the right word? His feet really, you can really see that they stand out, and they add kind of a nice colour, a nice pop of colour, we shall say, to the photograph, which I think is really lovely. Now, in terms of what kind of went well with this photograph and what I think could have been different, is firstly, it's very much a portrait photo of this buzzard. There's no kind of behaviours or exciting action going on in the photo. It's kind of left to be a portrait of the buzzard and left to speak for itself in that sense. And so I'm kind of you can't change the position of trees, and you can't change the position of wildlife when it is there, but it would have been cool if we had got the whole body of the buzzard in the shot and there wasn't kind of a tiny bit hidden behind this other tree, which is kind of annoying. And I do remember moving around the walkway to try and see if we can get a different angle, but it wasn't possible, and so this is the best kind of one that we got from that day, because of other foliage and stuff in the way. But that is kind of the only thing that I dislike about this photograph, is that his whole body isn't in it, or their whole body isn't in it. But otherwise, I really like it, and I think it is one of my favourite bird photographs that I've ever taken, because he just stands out amazingly, and I love it for that. But yeah, that is this week's photograph. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested, this one, as you can see, I am holding this one like last week's photograph, so you can get this as a print. I also have it as an A4 print, which I think is really, really cool, because you just see all the details in amazing detail. You can see all the details in amazing detail in the A4 print, which is really lovely. But yeah, that is this week's Behind the Shot. The next one, I think we will choose. I've done 2 weeks where I've chosen the photograph, so I think we will vote on what the next one should be. So keep an eye out on my Instagram or over here on YouTube, and we will I'll put up a poll with 2 different choices on photographs to discuss next time. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this, and I will see you all next week for a main vlog. Otherwise, see you in a few weeks for another Behind the Shot video.